Hey everyone, welcome back to the Geek Corner, and today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics to rant about on the internet, Star Trek. As a matter of fact, when I first got this channel up and running, I had a whole series on why Star Trek Into Darkness was a bad film. Yes, I do still think it was a bad film. I know some of you out there are like, no, it was cool, I kind of liked it. Sorry. For the things that I look at in Star Trek, it just didn't fit the mold. As a matter of fact, I have not seen the latest Star Trek movie. I really have no desire to see it in the theater. Star Trek Into Darkness literally broke this Star Trek extension of this universe for me. Do I think that I'll see the third movie? Maybe at some point. I'll rent it when it's on Amazon or something like that, but and from what I see in terms of the box office, I don't think it's doing too good. I think it's quickly dropped out of the top 5. I believe that I saw some articles saying that I'm not even sure if it's going to make its money back, which is kind of tough for a sequel of that caliber. Usually the name alone, between all the international recognition, will make a certain amount of money. So I don't know if I believe that necessarily, but it certainly doesn't seem to be the success that I think everyone is hoping for. Of course, I can give you a whole list of why I think that's the case, but that's not what today's episode is about. Today, I went back in time. That's right. I think I mentioned in a vlog a long time ago that I had started watching Voyager. And first, let me say, when I was initially exposed to Voyager, I was considerably younger. I was a huge fan of The Next Generation. I love Patrick Stewart's work. I think that Captain Picard is just an excellent character the way it's written, an even better character the way it's portrayed, and it was going to be very tough to do better than that. And I think that that's something that I still feel like Voyager didn't quite accomplish, and maybe doing better than Captain Picard is a tall order. I think when we look back in terms of television history, people are going to talk about that character in particular as being a standout character. I think he's even more important than Kirk, quite honestly. And Captain Janeway, that is featured in Voyager, to me, feels like she is modeled much more after Kirk. I think some people would say that Riker was modeled after Kirk. For Voyager, I think they certainly made Captain Janeway a bit more of a Kirk-type character, but of course they made it a woman on top of that. And I have to be honest, when I was a young punk coming out of being in love with Star Trek The Next Generation, for some reason Deep Space Nine never grabbed me. It still hasn't. As soon as I finished Voyager, I tried to go back to watch Deep Space Nine. I'm literally at episode 3, I think, and I gave up on it again. But I did get through all of Voyager this time, and I'm kind of proud that I did, because my original assumption about it was no one's going to watch this show. This in particular, the woman that is playing Captain Janeway is awful to watch. She has one of the worst smoker's voices that I think I've ever heard on television. I still might actually agree with that. And I didn't think that the kind of feminine twist that was happening with some of the storylines was cool for the Star Trek universe back then. I can tell you, after getting through the whole series now, I'm really happy that I chose to actually watch it from start to finish. I certainly nowadays, and I've changed, appreciate the feminine storylines that happened in there. They brought something that was much different to Star Trek than we had seen before. Some people might say there's a few too many episodes of this person falling in love with that person, or the captain falling in love with a hologram and stuff like that. But honestly, I thought it was at least something different for the Star Trek universe, which it was desperately needing by that time. And quite honestly, I wound up, when I got to the last episode, I was like, I'm going to miss some of these characters. I love the Doctor. I love Seven of Nine. I never really liked Kes, and I was so happy. I didn't know that this was going to happen, but in season 4, it's like they just completely drop Kes, and all of a sudden Seven of Nine shows up. I did know Seven of Nine was supposed to come into the show, but I didn't know that it was going to be basically kind of a trade-off in terms of casting with the actress that played Kes. I just think that she was not a very good actress, and they kept trying these storylines that were centered around that character, and those episodes I think are some of the clunkiest episodes in the whole series. The Seven of Nine character was really interesting, brought back to life that whole aspect. Between Seven of Nine and the Doctor, you definitely got that kind of Pinocchio storyline that we all loved Data for from The Next Generation. So I really liked that they were able to bring that back in a bit of a new and interesting way. It was cool having the Borg technology being integrated with the Voyager crew. It was also cool that there was encounters with the Borg. I didn't know that the Borg Queen was going to show up. I do remember that she showed up in one episode, but I think she actually wound up being in 3 or 4. And the coolest thing was in the finale, minor spoiler alert, but in the finale you actually had the same actress, I believe her name is Alice Krige if I remember correctly, that played the Borg Queen in Star Trek First Contact, which I think is hands down my favorite Star Trek movie of all time. As a matter of fact, I just rewatched it. I love that movie. It is the perfect, for what they're going for with this current J.J. Abrams version of Star Trek, I think Star Trek First Contact had already done it. I think it is a perfect mix of Star Trek lore wrapped into an action movie, and it's about as far into the action movie genre as Star Trek should go. I think these new movies are showing us that they're going too focused on action. They're getting away from the awesome characters. They have nothing like Captain Picard in the new Star Trek. Kirk, some people might even say, is more like a shadow of Kirk that we know from the original series. The Spock developments are really wacky. I don't get him anymore, and Spock used to be this kind of stable piece of logic that you could understand in these storylines. See, I told you guys, I love talking about bashing that new Star Trek universe. I'm already back to it. Let me get back on track. So Voyager, in the end, really enjoyed it. A few characters I wasn't super thrilled with, but they handled those pretty well. There was one thing that was really weird to me, that by the end, Neelix all of a sudden wasn't wearing his contacts or his fake teeth anymore, and I don't know why that happened. It's quite honestly one of the strangest things that I've seen happen in a television show, where all of a sudden you're used to seeing this character a certain way for 6.5 years, and then just in the last half of a season, of season 7, they decide to not complete his makeup. How the heck did that happen? It was so weird. I wound up searching on it as soon as I was like, is he not wearing his eyes? And I did a Google search on it, and yes, I found articles all over the place. He didn't wear his eyes. He asked the writers to work in something in the storyline about how his eye colors could change because he was getting older, and that didn't happen. But I didn't find a really good backstory. I don't know if they were giving him trouble or something like that, or if they were just knowing that production was winding down and they were trying to make it easier on the actors. I really don't know. But good characters, some very fun stories, and ultimately I really enjoyed it. And the cool thing is, now that I'm done with Voyager, it's basically my show that I watch whenever I'm running on the treadmill, and I run on the treadmill quite a bit, and then I also watch a little bit before I go to sleep at night. Now that I'm done with Voyager, I've started rewatching Star Trek The Next Generation. And there's this weird feeling that I get when I'm watching those episodes, where I get this like sense of relief. And I didn't realize that I had this tension going on watching Voyager, but it's like watching a Next Generation episode, all of a sudden I go, oh, all those characters that I really love are here. And all these characters work really well together. And these stories are really good sci-fi stories that really ask hard questions of humanity. It made me appreciate why I love Star Trek The Next Generation so much. And I sincerely hope, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, that this new Star Trek show that CBS is going to be kicking off in January, that is going to start on network television only for the pilot episode, but then move to being solely on the internet. I hope they get back to what it's really about. And it is really about good science fiction ideas. They don't have to be original, they just have to be good ideas and great questions about humanity. And if they at least bring those two aspects back in, build us a couple of decent characters around that, I'm pretty sure that show will be successful. But we'll see. Outside of all that, I don't think I've talked about it in a little while, but Star Trek Renegades is a web show that I kind of like, and it features a lot of actors that are from the Star Trek universe. part of this whole thing where CBS Paramount is now saying that they are allowing Star Trek fan productions. They have this whole list of stipulations where they're basically, even though they're saying that they're allowing Star Trek fan productions, they're not. They can't use the name Star Trek. They can't use any identifiable characters. They can't use actors that have been used in Star Trek before. They can't use pointy ears. They can't use known logos. They're basically saying, yeah, you can make Star Trek stuff, just don't make it Star Trek. Well, Renegades is doing exactly that. So they're continuing on, even though they're using Star Trek actors, but they have renamed the characters. They're pulling it out of the Star Trek universe, and I'm very curious to see if that show will be as successful as the original feature-length movie that they made was, without having the Star Trek branding around it. I think it will be, because I think it's got enough of a fan base now, but I'm curious to see how that plays out. Ultimately, CBS Paramount is trying to make a big wide berth for this new web version of a Star Trek show, and they are, it seems to me like they're terrified of any type of competition. So I hope that they really stick that out, make a good product, and keep the fans engaged there. I don't think they realize that those web series, those are like love letters to fandom, and when you cut that ability off, it's going to affect your fandom in some way. At some point, people are going to start retracting. I do think there's guys in big glass offices going, we know what we're doing. They're going to come along anyway. Look at the numbers for Star Trek 3. Oh, wait. I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell me your thoughts down below, particularly about Voyager. That's really what this video is supposed to be about. But outside of that, anything Star Trek, I would love to see your thoughts on that. And thank you so much for hanging out with me on this edition of the Geek Corner. Catch you on another show on the Geek and Dorks channel. Take care.